I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined series of Dave versus the MSM and Operation Freedom Briefing. I'd like to thank you for joining me in this new year and thank you for networking this information to all those you know and love. And speaking of that, over the holidays, how many people that you've spoken to over the years about, what's happening now? Whether it's the precious metals taking their rightful place, the implosion of the paper markets, the exposure of the criminal banking syndicate, the New World Order crowd, the deep state. How many of the people that pushed you, gave you a stiff arm for years saying, oh, that's conspiracy theory, or, oh, you're crazy. How many of those folks came back to you over the holidays or the new year and said, I'm sorry. You gave me a heads up. Just financially, did they come back and say, you were telling me about the power of precious metals, of physical gold and physical silver, about the fact that there's no counterparty risk or debt associated with holding them, buying them as a financial insurance. And unfortunately, I listened to Uncle Wally and kept pouring money into paper assets or vapor, the crypto crap. How many? None? Yeah, I know. It's frustrating, isn't it? But you know what? Somewhere along the line, they will come back to you. And they won't call you a conspiracy theorist any longer or crazy. I'd like to quote Steve Jobs, a visionary in the IT world, founder of Apple, about the crazy ones. You'll relate to this. Quote, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because it's the crazies. Well, they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius in them. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do, end quote. And that's what you've done. In spite of all the demonizing and name-calling and stiff-arming people have done, you've made people's lives better by telling them what they needed to know and not what they were being propagandized with through the bought-off lamestream fake media or their own blinder-laden scope of the world. I think one of the most effective things you can do this year, because although it might seem too late in the financial world, it's never too late, is educating and empowering people on the message we've been delivering 15 and a half years on the radio about the power of real money, money that doesn't have debt, DEBT, associated with it. That being the best financial insurance policy on the planet, physical gold and physical silver. About being prepared, whether it's having storable food and water available, because when the financial system resets, and it's resetting, they might not realize it, although I think they're kind of getting the hint. It's resetting. And when that happens, supply chains might not break, but they become extended. So, again, the precious metals company I've utilized for over 30 years, Camino, C-A-M-I-N-O, CaminoCompany.com. The best and I believe most honest in the business. And then for storable food and for water filtration systems, Numana, Numanna.com. And also utilizing our site, DaveJanda.com. And using the public side, where we have the best news ticker around that the deep state despises, that is not present on any other platform in the world. And all you have to do is, it's at the headlines they don't want you to know about. If you click on it, it'll go to a link of some information. But the subscription side, the 30 cents a day, $9 a month, is the single greatest investment you can make for this new year. $9 a month. And you get $900 minimum. Oh, maybe $9,000 the way precious metals are going. Maybe $90,000 a month worth of valuable information. You know, one of the things that it's led to me being called a conspiracy theorist over all these years, and crazy, is based on me bringing forward information that I became aware of when I first went to Washington in 1988 as an advisor and consultant to the Reagan administration to work on healthcare policy. And that was that, and I've been demonized for this, called beyond crazy, that there, now it's become more evident to even the most brain dead of your neighbors and relatives and co-workers, that there's one political party in Washington and all state legislatures around the country and every government in the world. Or they might have, you know, the Tories or there's one party. They're in this country known as the Republicrats, owned and operated by a criminal syndicate, that syndicate being the banking syndicate. And their goal is to get more power, control, and financial resources at the expense of all of us who value freedom. The way they do that, there's a multitude of operations they use, but it's based on one particular page of the playbook, and that's creating chaos. Whether it's with their never-ending and always fomenting wars, financial takedowns, revolutions. You know, they're doing that right now. I mean, in our own country, in the United States, and around the world, color revolutions. In fact, General Flynn, who's a guest on our platform on a regular basis, General Flynn recently stated, "We are in the domestic homegrown color revolution, and I'm not convinced that Donald Trump nor those national security officials advising him understand nor recognize how dangerous a period of time America faces if those involved are not held accountable." And in particular, he pointed the finger at the president's chief of staff, Susie Wiles. You see, folks, the color revolution can be broken into outside the wire and inside the wire. Inside the wire meaning it's essentially inside the executive branch, inside the White House. Emerald Robinson, former White House correspondent for Newsmax, who got fired because in the Trump 1.0 administration, she was asking pertinent and insightful questions about the origins of this and some of the preliminary research related to that, and it being, let's just say, my old boss, C. Everett Koop with the Reagan administration, Surgeon General. You know, he had on cigarette packs placed, consumption of this product could be hazardous to your health. The same could be said of that. But all of us that told you about it early and told you, you need comprehensive informed consent. You're not getting it. All of us, the few of us in the medical profession that warned you were labeled conspiracy theorists and crazy. No, we were accurate and far ahead of the curve based on what we had seen in the past and applying it to similar patterns that were occurring in 2019 and 2020. Emerald Robinson recently stated about this color revolution, President Trump is making the same mistakes in the second administration that he made in the first. He turned his first administration over to his globalist liberal son-in-law, Jared, and might I add, Ivanka, to run the show. Now he's turned his second administration over to globalist Susie Wiles to run the show. And it's not just Susie Wiles. that's running this color revolution. Oh, you're crazy for saying this. No, accurate. If you look at the people around the president, as General Flynn pointed out, is being fed bad information, being blocked from alternative views from the globalist viewpoint that's being continually pumped in both of his ears 24/7 by those around him. In particular, Susie Wiles, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury. Oh, no, he's okay. No, he's the former chief investment officer for George Soros and his funds. Stop. A leopard doesn't just disrobe its spots, right? Or how about Radcliffe, the director of the CIA, who's run by John Brennan, Obama's former director of the CIA? Or do nothing Pam Bondi, who's there to do nothing. That's why she's there. But the department's being run by an ultra-globalist, Todd Blanche, who's tight with the Clintons and the Obamas. Other mid-level puppets. Mid-level, not upper level, mid-level. One of the big problems people will say, and anyone who says that, you need to confront them about it peacefully, but firmly. Oh, Obama's pulling all the strings. Stop. Obama is a middle, maybe middle level puppet. His handler is Valerie Jarrett. Valerie Jarrett, who lives in his Washington D.C. house that's a couple miles away from the White House that ran the first color revolution from 2016 to 2020. That whole Russian collusion thing and all that garbage. And to this day, Valerie Jarrett is run by the banking syndicate. The banking syndicate is run by the banking families. And let's start the new year off with their names because they hate this. How do I know? Because of the blowback Dave gets. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Lazards, the Pinkuses, the Warburgs, the Seifs, the Loebs, and the very top of the pyramid, the Pessoa family. So we got Wiles, Lutnick, Bessent, Radcliffe, Bondi, Blanche. Throw Rubio in there. Oh, Kash Patel, Bongino, who's now gone, but what did he do? Oh, he talked a huge game coming in, but yeah, I know. And numerous second-level appointees in every department and every agency, which were handpicked by Susie Wiles and her little puppet, Sergio Gore, who did such a great job for the globalists. He got promoted, so he's now ambassador to India, so he can launder more money into his own pockets and all his other buddies' pockets. The good news is, my experience, is that there are people actually inside the wire who are fighting these globalists and trying to get word. But the problem is that chief of staff position. They are the gatekeepers. Wiles is the gatekeeper. But there are people, J.D. Vance's staff actually has been very supportive of the freedom movement. Tulsi Gabbard. RFK, problem is that Wiles and Gore put so many blocks around Kennedy, it's amazing he can get anything done. But he's not as effective as he could be if he didn't have these landmines and roadblocks all around him. Tom Homan has been a godsend, as has Ed Martin at the Department of Justice, who all of a sudden now they're now investigating Ed Martin. Why? Because he's trying to hold Blanche's and Bondi's feet to the fire and Patel's feet to the fire. And there are also people in the drug czar's office that are getting it done. But all of us that point this out about what's really going on, well, we're called crazy. But in spite of the globalists' inside the wire color revolution operation, the freedom agenda is advancing. Why? Because of you, because of us getting the word out, you speaking to your friends, families, neighbors, and people then circling that to their friends and families and putting pressure on government. Hey, calling your congressman, senator, White House. excuse me, but I'm all about freedom, and I don't understand why X, Y, and Z is happening. Let the president know. Let the congressman know. Let the senator know, because calls do work, by the way. I know that you're told they don't. They do. They get enough of them. Believe me, it gets to them. We know that this is occurring. Why are you letting this occur? You're part of the problem. If your boss doesn't do something about this, our entire community, are going to launch a recall petition, are going to support a candidate to run against them in the primary. It scares the living daylights out of them. And we're seeing some movement. People inside the wire that are battling the globalists inside the wire are getting information out that is corroborating what many of us have said over many years' time as us being correct. Good example. Massive scandal. We had Garland Favorito on our platform years ago, several times, about the fraud that occurred in Georgia during that whole 2020 Goat Rodeo November event, when they installed their El Demente, right? He brought receipts years ago on our platform about the fraud. Well, here we are now. Fulton, the end of December 2025. Fulton County in Georgia, Atlanta is based in Fulton County. Administrative attorney admits they violated the rules in the 2020 election when they certified 315,000 early votes that lacked poll workers' signatures. Quote, "We don't dispute the allegation," end quote. The Secretary of State also found Fulton County violated official election processes. Biden won, and I use that term loosely, in Georgia in 2020 by 11,700 votes. 315,000, the vast majority of which, like 95%, maybe even close to 99%, supposedly voted for El Demente. And he won by 11,700. That election also flipped Senate seats and down ballot seats, the fraud. Now, when any of us spoke about this back in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, we were crazy. No, we're not crazy. It's just one of the examples of how the information that we have brought to you and that you have tried to network to friends, families, neighbors, and coworkers and were told crazy, was in fact completely on target. So let's do a full circle here. Let's go back to the quote from Steve Jobs about us, the crazy ones. Quote, "Here's to the crazy ones." Take a bow. Clap for yourself. Go right ahead. You're allowed to. Yeah. "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs, and the square holes. The ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you cannot do is ignore them. Because you, change things. You, push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see them as geniuses, you. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." End quote. And that's what you do. And that's what you'll continue to do. Because, folks, the battlefield is at a current state that all those that have tried to stiff-arm you in the past are now more receptive to your, quote, crazy, end quote, message and information. Don't stop. Don't stop. This is the year we can win this war. A war for freedom. for every person in our country and the world. Future generations are counting on all of us to not stop, to persevere, to continue to dedicate and sacrifice ourselves in bringing facts, truth, data, and when needed, the science to each and every person we touch. Happy New Year. You can join us 24/7 with content I cannot discuss on social media platforms or on the radio based on the content I've developed over the past now 38 years. Information that puts you months, years ahead of the globalist constructed curve that ends in a brick wall with the shattering of your freedom, your liberty, your health, your financial well-being, and your life. We provide you an off-ramp at davejanda.com, an off-ramp for avoiding that brick wall. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today. Go get 'em.